What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Stand to Reason and exactly how bigoted they are. Presenting today for Stand to Reason is Alan Schlemon, who's gonna make one of the most bigoted arguments that I've ever heard from this organization. So if y'all want to fuck around and find out exactly how bigoted Stand to Reason is, then please stay tuned.
All right, this week's challenge is about the question of same-sex marriage. And here's the challenge. They say this: if you take away same-sex marriage, you'll take away stability from children of same-sex couples. So not only will you be discriminating against people wanting to marry, but you'll also be hurting the next generation.
Well, this particular question has kind of a nuanced answer to it, because I don't think that you necessarily have to be married in order to give a child a nice, loving home for them to grow up in, or even to prepare that child to be successful in the future. According to the Pew Research Center, there's virtually no difference in a married parent household and a cohabitating two-parent household as far as the welfare of the child goes. So whether or not you get married doesn't seem to affect that particular aspect of the home life of the child. But there is an aspect of this entire situation that you also need to consider. In this particular question, they're asking, whether or not that affects stability, or that it does definitely affect the stability of the child's living situation. And I would answer that it definitely does in the very legal sense of the word. Because when you rip away marriage from these same-sex couples, you create a slightly unstable situation for the child. This unstable situation being that one parent has full parental rights to that child while the other parent simply doesn't have any rights as far as that child goes. This would affect, like in emergency situations, whether both parents would be able to handle a situation with their child. If you take away marriage from a same-sex couple, then you're only going to have one parent with full parental rights for that child, and the other parent simply doesn't have the same rights. This could negatively affect the child in that sense. But as far as like the well-being of the child, a same-sex household is going to be no different than a heterosexual household. So there's really no difference there. It's only in the very legal sense that we're concerned with here. But Alan decides to respond to this question in a very different way.
Now, this challenge is true only if you assume that same-sex marriage is an ideal situation for parenting children.
Well, no, I assume that a same-sex couple, married or not, is the exact same kind of ideal as two parents that are heterosexual. I think that they're no different. So as far as the ideal situation, I think that they're on the exact same level.
And of course, I've argued in numerous blog posts and other videos in the past that this is not the case. So my intent here is not going to be to rehash all those arguments.
I wish you kind of would, but we already know that you're that kind of bigot. But just to let everybody know that the actual science behind all of this says that same-sex marriages literally have no effect on heterosexual marriages or the family life or anything like that. These people just think that it's icky for, same-sex people to get married, I guess, or be in a relationship or whatever, because God said so in his book or something like that. But it's primarily a religious thing. It's not really a scientific thing, even though he's trying to make it sound scientific.
Now, according to this challenge, there are a number of same-sex couples that have children. But since they aren't allowed to get married, that is the couples, this ultimately then harms the children. So it is alleged, though, then, that if you allow these same-sex couples to get married, it will allow the children to prosper.
I mean, in the very legal sense or the legal aspect of it, yes. Because then if both parents are married and they're both like legally parents of the child and they have equal parental rights to that child, and in that sense both parents then can handle anything that comes up with that child, whether it be an emergency room trip or something to do with school, like one parent has to work so the other parent goes and picks up the child. If you take away same-sex marriage, then a number of those situations become wholly dependent on the one person that's considered the legal parent and guardian of the child. So yes, it would present significant problems for that family. You're introducing this situation that would cause instability in that family.
If having children in an unmarried same-sex household is harmful, then the solution is not to allow for same-sex marriage, but it's to prevent same-sex couples from adopting.
Ooh, really there, Schlemon? Wow, this is kind of a hot take, I have to say, saying that, I mean, you're not officially making the argument right now, but we know that you're heading in that direction because obviously you don't want same-sex couples adopting kids, but, it's just, this is a incredibly hot take. Like, it's already a hot take to say that same-sex couples shouldn't have the same rights as other people, heterosexual couples, but you're going one step further and saying that they shouldn't even be able to adopt a child if they want to. I mean, I'm kind of curious. Do you think that if somebody, realizes that they are a homosexual or not heterosexual, rather, and so they end up getting a divorce and they have primary custody of their kid, do you think that they should be taken away? I mean, what are the ramifications of you thinking that same-sex couples shouldn't have children?
The real harm comes not from denying same-sex couples the right to marry, but from denying children the right to a mother and a father.
Well, I mean, I don't think that children innately have a right to a mother and a father. I mean, obviously the best situation for a family is at least two parents in the household. I mean, that allows proper coverage, for attending to the child's needs and everything like that. It allows you to, handle different situations that come up. So, I mean, having at least a two-parent household, I would think is the best parenting situation that you could come up with, but I don't think that it necessarily has to be a mother and a father.
And that's because decades of research in social science and psychology and medicine have shown that children do best when they're raised by their biological mother and biological father in a long-term marriage.
Okay, so I don't understand what the whole long-term marriage thing is about. I think that you can properly provide for a child, even if it hasn't been a long-term marriage. But that makes me wonder if you think that only people that have been married for like 10 years can then adopt a child. That's not to say that I think that if you get married, you should be immediately, able to adopt a child. But I don't understand what why the long-term marriage is one of the requirements in your view. But he's talking about studies here, and he's not really citing any studies, which, what we say here on the channel, citation fucking needed. We would definitely need these citations, but he's not going to provide any. He'd make you scour the Stand to Reason website in order to figure out what studies he's referencing. But what he's really talking about here is the science behind the shit that he's spewing. And the science conclusively shows that he is wrong. Recently, there was a meta-analysis done on over 79 studies that cover this exact question. And studies have shown conclusively that same-sex households fare no worse than heterosexual households when concerned with the well-being of children. This is what the 79 studies have concluded. There are some outliers in those studies, specifically 4 of them, but there are problems with those studies, and they have been criticized by scientists working in the field. But the important thing is that 75 of those 79 conclusively prove that children are just fine in same-sex households, and that same-sex households cause no harm to children. That's what the actual science says. He is blowing smoke up your ass about what the science says.
And so same-sex marriage intentionally creates a situation that denies a child either their mother or father. In fact, same-sex marriage literally says that mothers and fathers are interchangeable, that a mother offers no unique contribution to her role as a parent. In fact, a man could accomplish all the functions of a woman, of a mother, just as well as she could. And of course, this not only goes against common sense, but it goes against much of what we know from research for the last 20 or 30 years of social science, medicine, and psychology.
Actually, it doesn't. And no, a mother and a father provide no significant, unique thing to the situation, other than the mother could breastfeed an infant, but other than that, there's no significant, unique thing that just a father or a mother bring to the parenting situation. The thing that matters is having two parents there to care for their children. That's what ultimately matters in this situation. Obviously, a single-parent household is going to be less than ideal when compared to a two-parent household, at least two-parent household. Now, this is what the scientific studies say about, two-parent versus one-parent, but very obviously one-parent households can be successful. So it's not just the fact that there's one parent there. There's other mitigating factors that also contribute to both of these households. I just have to say, fuck common sense. Most of the time, common sense is wrong. And for him to say that, oh, well, this goes against our common sense, it's like, no, it goes against your common sense, your very myopic view of the world. Just because I'm a guy doesn't mean that I can't provide the same loving nature that a mother can to my son. I can definitely provide the same kind of environment for my son that a mother would.
Now, does this mean if we have a woman who's married to a man and has a kid, and she gets divorced and becomes a lesbian, and then takes that child into a lesbian relationship, that therefore we should take that child away from that lesbian mother and her lover? No, of course, I'm not saying that.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you're not saying we should rip children away from their parents. Woo! Honestly, though, I feel like what you're proposing in this video is just a small stepping stone away from doing exactly that, though. If we have laws on the books that prevent same-sex couples from getting married or having children, then it's really not that big of a stretch to say that the government will start ripping children away from their parents if they, quote-unquote, become a lesbian. They didn't become a lesbian. They were always a lesbian. It wasn't a choice that they made. But you see, that's why your particular view on this entire subject is incredibly problematic. Because it may start at the, oh, we can't allow same-sex couples to adopt children. But then you just take one small step further and you're taking children away from their parents just because they realized that they were homosexual.
And in fact, the parallel situation would be if a woman who's married to a man and has a kid, and the man and her divorce, she remains a heterosexual, but now is a single mother. Do we take that child away from her? No, of course not.
Well, obviously, because they're not a homosexual. That's the reason why, right? Arbitrary reasons. Ha!
Now, both of the situations of the single mother and the woman with a child in a same-sex relationship, I would argue, are less than ideal situations of parenting. But that just means that we as a culture and as a community should come around and try to support and help these people provide good parenting for their child, because after all, they don't have those children in both situations do not have the benefit of having both a mother and a father in that relationship.
I definitely think employing people in your life to help you if you are a single parent is a good thing, but I feel like what you could be talking about is drastically different. I'm not going to sit here and try to guess what you might be referring to when you say that everybody needs to help provide stability for that family. But I really don't think that if a person, leaves their current marriage and then, starts a same-sex relationship or even gets married to a person of the same sex, I don't think that the entire community needs to rally around them. If the family wants the help, then definitely I think that people should provide help. But I don't think that we just innately need to start, trying to figure out how to make it work with this person. I feel like what you're saying is that these people in these situations, the single parent, the same-sex couple, just cannot handle the responsibilities of being a parent. And that's fucking bullshit.
So since we recognize that both of those situations are less than ideal, we shouldn't then intentionally create a parenting or family model that denies a child either their mother or father or both by allowing same-sex couples to adopt.
And here's where he makes the argument that same-sex couples should not be allowed to adopt, because apparently it denies the child their right to have a mother and a father. Again, I don't think a child has a right to a mother and a father. I think that children should be taken care of by a two-parent household, but even then, a one-parent household can be just as good as a two-parent household. Now, scientific studies, of course, show something different, but again, there's mitigating factors surrounding a one-parent household situation. It's very obvious that a one-parent household can be successful if done in the correct way, but what he's saying here is that we should not allow same-sex couples to be able to adopt. For what reason again? An imaginary innate right to a mother and a father? Just because you have some kind of archaic idea of what the family should look like? The standard American blonde-haired, blue-eyed fucking Nazi as fuck family? It just grates on me a little bit that he would sit there and suggest preventing people equal rights. Because that's what it really boils down to here, is whether or not same-sex couples should have the same rights as any other couple. And he wants to deny them that because of arbitrary reasons based on his skewed aspect of what the American family or what a successful family looks like.
So that's the real concern. It's not whether we should allow for same-sex marriage or not. Of course, I don't think we should. But the problem here that we have is that we're intentionally creating a situation that is less than ideal for the child.
It's literally scientifically not less ideal, because we're specifically talking about same-sex couple versus a different sex couple, right? It's literally no different. That's what the science says about it. And I think that depending on, the family situation, there's always these mitigating factors, but they're exactly the same. Two-parent households compared to two-parent households, that's what matters. And they're exactly the same.
And so that's why I don't believe same-sex couples should be allowed to adopt. And to be consistent and fair, that's why I don't think we should allow single people to adopt either.
Wow, that's a lot of words for saying that you're some kind of shitbag bigot.
Because both situations represent a situation where a child is not being given both a mother and a father.
Why does that matter to him? He said this multiple times already. Like, apparently to him, having a mother and a father is the key to success in a household. Like, I really don't think that it is. Like, true, the two parents are going to have different personalities. They're going to parent the child in different ways. But that's what makes a stable household. That's what provides, a well-rounded type of household for the child, or these differing ideas. But I don't think that these ideas, like one set of ideas doesn't have to be held by only the fathers, and the other set of ideals is only held by the mothers. I mean, these are interchangeable things, and this has been a well-known issue with this particular worldview for a while. Enforcing these arbitrary social constructs on the family is just as damaging to the family unit as almost anything else. Sitting there acting like the father has to be big old macho man that just wants to slap the kids around and get some discipline in them, while the mother's all loving and forgiving and all this other stuff. I mean, I feel like insisting that that is the way that things are done is way more harmful to the child than just allowing the parents to be the parents. Well, heathens, that's going to be it for the video today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know I really enjoyed, reviewing this for y'all, especially for Pride Month. It always aggravates me whenever I encounter bigots like this. I mean, it's so foreign to me to think to, restrict the rights of other people, of people that are just different than me. Like, I don't That's always been such a foreign concept for me, but people like this exist out there. Alan Schlemon is one of those. He's still writing these types of bigoted articles today. And so it hasn't changed in the past 6 years for this guy. So if you heathens will, please leave me your thoughts down below about what you think about Alan Schlemon's ideas here. I'd really love to read your responses down there. And hey, while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of video. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.